My name is Shannon, and I have the pleasure to host today's stage at Maschinen House. I'll be hosting throughout the program. We have a lot of really interesting stuff coming up, really. It's so much, it's so vast that, I don't know, but just by looking at the program, my head is already like, phew. So I hope you were able to organize yourselves, and I'm happy to see all of you here, which means you're interested in this conversation. Our next session, which is going to start really, really soon. First of all, welcome to Most Wanted Music Berlin 2024. Ooh. Ooh. Come on, let's bring up some more energy. Good morning, good day, good people. How are you all doing? Yeah? Yeah? You can give me a thumbs up like this, or like this. How are you doing? You can be honest. What do we got? Okay, here it's fairly up. What about over there? Oh, 2 thumbs up. Okay, I like that. Mine is like this. But now, since I get to be with all of you, it's going to be also 2 thumbs up. For sure, we're going to have already a sticky conversation, a tough conversation, but a conversation that needs to be had. We need to talk about how to get by in this very tricky industry of yours. It's not mine, but I'm also a happy fan of the industry. And I am going, nice, thank you so much for your help. Hope nobody got cut. And I'm going to welcome Melissa on stage, who will be the host of the upcoming panel. Please welcome her with a warm applause. You may choose your seat, and maybe you can just give us, just like 1-2 tidbits on what are we going to expect for the upcoming panel.
Hi, welcome. I think the most important, and I think the starting point for which that I spoke with Nikki about when I wrote her, because I work in the live music business as well, and for me it was very concerning what was happening in my own area when starting to look at booking artists that were kind of starting their careers or just taking off, and how to continue putting them on stages where we don't know about ticket sales and whatnot. When this is happening, it starts to be a problem, and especially also it's happening not only in bigger commercial venues, it's happening inside of DIY venues where I do a lot of my work at. So I was starting to kind of wondering what is my next steps and how to do that. And for me, it's always about going to the people that are doing it with me to discuss that and think about actually solutions in order to get through this, because we can't do it together. We can't do it alone.
Absolutely. Melissa, we are very excited. Please give it up one more time, and I'm very curious about your panel.
So I guess that would leave me to announce the lovely guests that I have here today that Nikki was so great to put together. So first of all, we have Chris Duncan, the founder of Unfold Artists, a Berlin-based booking and artist agency focused on global live touring. So that's very important to have somebody who is looking outwards and not just locally, as I do. Then we have Prince Emrah, founder, curator, host, and performer involved in community-based events like Oriental Festival and the Queerberg Collective. Please come to the stage. Thank you. Yeah, round of applause, exactly. We do need your energy, the same as a concert. When people are up on stage, it's great when there's actually a response out there. Next, we have Nnajiuba, a London-born, Berlin-based DJ, host, and curator with a solid reputation in the global electronic music scene as well. So here we have global perspectives. And finally, we have Andrea Goetzke. She's also my colleague and co-founder of Music Pool Berlin, where I work. And she's a curator and culture producer herself, organizing community events and leading our discourse program. So thank you for our illustrious audience. So I just maybe kind of start off. Today's discussion is, as we've already discussed, is mentioning the financial challenges within the live music sector, and that's with clubs That's venues. The artists, of course, and I think that we have to also include fans in this as well, because it touches everybody, and that's, whatever role that you are playing in. And sometimes many of us, you'll probably learn here through this conversation, are in many roles inside of this business. So yeah, that's kind of where we're coming from. Again, I'm living here in Berlin, a Berlin-based producer of festivals. I'm promoting live shows and working as a consultant at Music Pool Berlin. So I'm very much seeing this issue in many aspects of my job every day. So I'm happy to be here with all of you. And I want to say that the conversation as well, we're going to be talking about all that stuff, and it's a lot to cram into 40 minutes. But if you have something concrete to add, raise your hand. If you have something that is, we want to look for solutions to, please raise your hand if you have an experience with something. Otherwise, let's wait to the last couple minutes to have a Q&A. But if it's really like something you can add, please do raise your hand, because it's important that we do this conversation together. So thank you. So yeah, today's talking, the whole festival is talking about monetizing, and that's what we talk about as money is the first thing. So I guess that's not such an uplifting subject right now. But I think that looking into our small universes, the bubbles and the communities that maybe that you already belong to right now, we can already start thinking about strategies. So as I mentioned, please jump in. Hold on 1 second. I have lots of paper in a very nice 19-point font to look at today because of, getting older. I wanted to start with an article that I had read in The Guardian that was published in April of this year. And the title was called "The Working Class Can't Afford It, The Shocking Truth About the Money Bands Make on Tour." So that's starting from more of like a live music band situation. And I would say the point of that was from the UK music industry, but it's very, I think, can put it onto any live music industry everywhere, just very specifically. And that's maybe something, Chris, we can get into later, as about the data that you sent me, which is quite horrifying, what's happening in the UK as well. The topic is also just about mostly venues and the support system around artists. So we're talking about this is the money that we're making supporting everybody in that ecosystem. So it's quite staggering what the results are. So maybe Chris, we start with you, because that was kind of the first mail that I got with a lot of information. I thank you very much for that. If you can give your perspective as an agent who's working with artists and what it looked like maybe in 2024 and what the thoughts are about 2025 going into there, and if you've had any hard conversations with artists and managers at this moment in time.
Yeah, sure. So just for a bit of context, my agency, we're quite a small agency. We're not one of the large, like triple letter ones you get in London perhaps, but I don't think you can really talk about touring in 2024 without zooming out a little bit and looking at the years directly prior to it. I think before COVID, I hate using the term the market, but the market was already hitting a kind of like, this is not sustainable saturation point. Just the number of events, the fees that some agents were demanding, it just wasn't sustainable. It was always going to burst. And what made it burst was COVID. And then I felt that working with artists, there was a kind of like events came back after COVID and it all felt like everything was fine again, nature is healing, etc. But now, after the kind of, we can put on events again, kind of the sunset on that, 2024 really felt like the first year where this is what running an event looks like going ahead. And what that looks like is venues closing, margins getting tighter, and a lot of the models that previously worked just don't apply anymore. And you're trying to navigate how to get out of that. For context, my perspective here is going to be working with, like, we work with artists for a really long time, and a lot of them don't have management, so it's very kind of interpersonal, and we kind of do everything for them. So that's not the same as somebody that's maybe got a big management team and a bigger agency. We are having a lot of hard conversations about people that are maybe at a certain fee level and just kind of, they're not getting booked as much because promoters are finding that they're less able to take chances with some lineups, and they're just kind of sticking to kind of things that they know can sell tickets. And it's kind of, and I completely understand that. But it is leading to people of a smaller profile who used to be able to kind of have a fairly steady gig schedule, now kind of seeing that drying up, and they're starting to get very concerned. People that had a career established quite strongly before maybe COVID or prior to that, kind of seeing as a legacy act now and kind of continuing to get booked. That only applies really within my sphere, which is very rooted in club culture, live bands, etc. That's not my domain. So, but yeah, that's my kind of initial thoughts.
Great, thank you for that. I just want to mention that in this information you sent me, the data that was from the Nighttime Industries Association, I guess, out of the UK, I guess. They said between June 2020 and June 24, the UK lost 480 nightclubs. And that means 10 closing a month and 2 a week. I don't have, maybe somebody here is from Club Commission and can jump in later on and give us some data on that, because I know, Berlin's maybe not losing the numbers that quickly, but it's losing a lot. So that's really a big factor for all of us. And the people that are working in venues, maybe some, is there people in here for venues? Anyone from venues? Artists? Couple? And people working in the music business as event makers, festival people, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so those are like facts which we really gotta take a look at seriously, and also it's politically, and actually luckily we have a good infrastructure here. Club Commission is doing a lot of work in that respect, yeah. Yeah, maybe that's a good point to talk about in this conversation, about some alternatives to what could happen or what we can do as either artists or event people to make it work with the money that we have, So and do it in a fair way. What maybe makes the event less things happening, but people getting properly paid or whatever. I don't know. We'll talk about that. Another question I hear. That was maybe something related to the dwindling infrastructure, and if we I thought about maybe if there's alternative spaces mushrooming because of that. So maybe there will be something positive happening, meaning that we have again people opening spaces which then are maybe more off the market, and doing things differently. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have some thoughts about that.
Hello, yeah. You were looking at me, so I feel like
maybe.
One thing I will say, because I was part of the Tag de Club Culture, jury, I don't know if that's the right term to use. So we got a lot of applications in from venue spaces, programmers looking for the funding, but also it was really eye-opening in terms of seeing what challenges people are facing, and there seems to obviously be quite a reoccurring themes from the financial pressures, gentrification, also how club culture interacts with world crises and what's going on currently in different parts of the world, but that also affect whether it's Berlin or London or different ecosystems. And I think what I found quite, reassuring in some ways is that at least in Berlin, the desire to find alternatives. And what has been quite interesting is seeing the rise, in these smaller community spaces which are away from the club scene, but actually do hold space and opportunities for people to express and deliver creativity. They might not be making large club fees, but with more of these things occurring where artists might make a couple €100 or something, that could also provide space for there's a bigger number of financial opportunities and also different ways of expressing music culture. Obviously, right now we're also contending with changing behaviours. People might want to sleep earlier and not be out until 8 a.m. So if you have an event in somewhere like Queer, which ends at 2 a.m. or 12 a.m., or 8 p.m. I don't know. Like it's an alternative way of engaging and enjoying music, but in a different format. I think that also is something that is really applicable to emerging artists as well, because it might be harder for them to get their foot into the bigger venues and the traditional club structures, but engaging with the local small events that are more community-run, community-based. And also there's a level of like vested interest, and it's not just about like the market, the industry. There's often more of an interpersonal relationship with these spaces. And I feel like for me, on my side, I'm also find that there's value in supporting these and like maybe playing. You might get a lower fee, but supporting these venues enabling them to grow, and who knows what could happen in a few years when they are able to access more fundings, more like funding opportunities. So I think that's an interesting alternative that I'm seeing, like the rise of smaller spaces, small community spaces that incorporate club culture into just experiential kind of behaviours as well. Yeah, and it still is, because on last week I went to an event and it was like almost like a DJ listening party, and there was like, everyone was like sitting around on like sofas. I had a proper nap, like a full-blown nap, but my friend was like playing like dubstep and MC Yalla, and it was like really sick and really cool. No one was dancing, but we were just vibing to the same music you might hear in, I don't know, not me forgetting the names of the clubs in Berlin, Globus, that sort of vibe, but it was like in a different space, yeah. So I think
that's kind of things I was thinking of too, like that there must be a swing in another direction that maybe, hopefully, we can get some positivity.
And like also depending on the season, like also outdoor parties. Yeah. Like there's a party called Fandango that I really enjoy, and they've been throwing parties in Plotzensee, Stradband, Plotzensee for like the summer, and it's like family friendly as well. It starts at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday because it's only in Berlin that people can be raving at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, but then it ends at like 10 p.m. But it's also an alternative way of experiencing going out. But I think it also requires like maybe a shift in approach and expectations from people going out, and also DJs and like all artists, and what fees they can expect. But then it's hard because we live in a time of like financial strain. So there's only so low you can, reduce your fee to adapt to this new concept and live in the reality of like the world we are in now.
I mean, I think that for my opinion, especially as somebody who's making events, this is always a part of my I call it the triangle. What you think about when you're making something is about like, and that's also the fee that you're able to ask. What's possible in that situation? Who are you making the event for, as well? I mean, not like exactly this person or that group, but just in general thinking about who can afford it. And I think that's what I've been staying in since COVID. I've basically only been producing events inside of smaller spaces so that I can achieve something different and help as many people as possible. So that is definitely thinking.
Can I add one thing? I don't want to hog, but also another thing, like another benefit I'd say of these spaces is that they can often host weekday or events outside of the typical like clubbing time. So you also have like a way of making money midweek if you're used to like only DJing on the weekend, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's good suggestions to anybody out there who's doing that. Maybe you also touched on something about funding, because that's part of what the group you're in. And I think that we can't rely on funding as our only alternative here. I mean, we know what's happening, what the demonstration was about today. We know there's going to be cuts already, so we can expect that we're not going to be getting even the money that has been there, which is, I mean, in a way, it's very privileged compared to many places. And with that in mind, we have to think about alternative ways to get by as either artists making or producing your work, or club owners or festivals putting on events. I thought maybe, Andrea, you could touch on that, because with Music Pool we had a similar discussion there, and you had mentioned to me a couple days ago regarding community in general, like maybe different ways to distribute funds within community ideas or spaces.
Yeah, we had with Music Pool, I moderated a similar conversation, and I think that conversation was quite productive. We got a lot of, so I'm going to relay, like we talked a lot about just like how isn't the money distributed, because money is being made somewhere in this world. Like there is money. It's just the question where it's just being not so much being made here, and how like really look at those ecosystems that exist and think about is there a way that we could redistribute it? It's not that, also we did not solve this question in the conversation, but we were thinking about, okay, so if, for example, you were saying there are artists that are being successfully booked also these days, could there be more like a kind of a scene thinking that we could address, like where we say, okay, if I'm doing well in the industry, maybe I have also a responsibility for those acts that are upcoming, and how can I support them by maybe including them in support slots in my tour. Or I think agents are already, like booking agencies are already kind of doing this. We had also a booking agent in the conversation, this was 2 months ago or so, saying that we are actually already, like, we can only support upcoming artists because we have successful artists, and we kind of internally can shift. We can make a tour happen for an upcoming artist because we have a successful artist, and are internally already kind of shifting that money, and those kind of structures. Like how can we more think as a scene together, and how can we redistribute money? We had also someone in the conversation who was a promoter, and saying that also in the audience, not everybody can afford an expensive ticket, but some people can. And how can you maybe have like supporter tickets for events? So somebody could pay a double amount for a ticket, and this allows somebody who cannot afford it to attend. Like those kind of those kind of things we discussed.
Yeah.
And I find that an interesting avenue to pursue.
Yeah, I think we have to think of every different thing that we can do to adjust that. We do that also at Schokoladen, where we've always done like a sliding scale for tickets, and now that we've had to raise tickets even there at a venue which we used to do like 6 to 8 euros for a concert, we're talking like now it's 10 to 12 to 15 sometimes at the top, and we're always fighting each other within our collective to say, no, we have to put the down tickets in, and then the drink tickets, we're like, oh, we could go up 50 cents. No, we can't have the beer for cheap. So there's a lot of conversation inside of these kind of spaces which are concerned about everyone getting by and surviving, but it means like at a different level, So everyone has to kind of take a hit, but try to do it together. So yeah, those are things I think that we are going to have to think about, whether or not we're in those spaces to get by as an artist or as a festival maker or as an event person. I also wanted to touch, because of all those things that are happening, because I have this in my conversations with Music Pool, a little bit talking about how this, mental health has been now and has increasingly, definitely since COVID. I mean, I'm speaking mostly online to people every week, at least 3 to 4 people, and I see it happening in such an alarming rate. And now with the financial strains getting not even tighter, I'm trying to imagine how we do that without being in communities, without having structures. Maybe anybody else afterwards can have, if you have experiences or have ideas, please come up and tell me, because I'm always looking for ways to help other people. I don't know if anyone here wants to dip into the mental health discussion, but that could be a whole panel. I'm sure somewhere, hopefully in this event, it's happening. Because that means also about one big thing is I get a lot is I might choose a different career path. So it means we're going to have people leaving the business, not just places closing down, but we have people leaving the business that are very creative, that have like doing things that they've spent their whole life moving towards, and now are going to go and do an alternative job. So those are big questions out there, and I think we can't discuss all of them here, but I would like to have it in your heads to think about, maybe, and especially look around your people that you have around you and talk to them about that, and maybe you have some guidance for somebody else. I would like to, we haven't spoke to you, Prince Emrah. It goes without saying that the BIPOC LGBTQI plus community has historically a disadvantaged situation when it comes to, I would say, making a sustainable career in music in general. So you're fighting against a lot of different levels and different things, and also just with whether it's booking or finding team to be able to pay for a team, like be able to do the things that some artists that you maybe work aside with or at other festivals play next to have a different situation. Can you give us some insight into what discussions that you are having around the kind of table and the spaces that you have created, especially like House of Royals, a space which you provide for asylum seekers and refugees, with the knowledge that things in general are looking the way they are right now financially?
Yes, so we are discussing about money. Yes. And of course, mental health, which is... So to start from the beginning, House of Royals, Queerback Collective, the reason how we came together, we are refugee performer collectives, that not to lose our minds, not to get crazy, and be busy with the things that makes us happy. We start in 2017 our space just at a small bar stage. Let's do something every monthly, come together. It was not a reason for earning money. It was not earning, I don't know, like not to be famous. We just want to do the things that makes us happy and motivate for the future. And so what makes us also like motivating for these days, that we talk, let's not forget why we started this space. And of course there are so many reasons not to be happy or to lose the motivation for or hope for the future, but we try to stay together. And like now we start with 3-4 performers at the beginning, and nowadays as a collective we're around 20 refugees, sex workers, and BIPOC performers. And it's not only from Berlin and from different cities. It was kind of a united space that when people comes to Berlin, they're always texting that they know we are organizing in different small spaces or clubs, party, show cases, and which makes us so happy that they trust and feel safe to be there. And like we had so many difficulties also before. Like I cannot compare it before how it was 10 years. We were not here. But since 2015, so far what we experienced it, to be honest, we felt kind of, I don't know, like machine of just finding a solutions for problems there, because there were always problems for us. Like at some point we were too simple to be on a queer or in general big stage club spaces, because most of us are cultural dancers like belly dance, Bollywood or strippers, and it was not enough look to get booked, and we had to survive and like push ourselves to accept it and be there. At some point we were not too serious taking collective because we were refugee and we had a language barriers, and we were not, of course, people who are writing a long 2-page emails to them, or I don't know, like applications to the pages to write. This was for us something a next level, a next world. I mean, I don't remember until my 19 how many emails in my life I got. So like but then, like pandemic, Corona time was, and after that, so many things to just change it. Like community lost in general, I think, because regularly stage performers, we had this kind of culture that if someone new coming, somehow we crossed on the backstage on stage from old performers, and we somehow knew each other. And also our crowd from old performers, we transferred to new ones, and it continued after each other. But there was a big break, And on that time, so many new performers came out, and the old ones, we didn't know them. And old ones want to be safe and not take a risk with the new ones. Maybe they will not bring an audience or like many other reasons. So it kind of separated the community. It didn't like come that much together, not corporations anymore. And then now it's another, we have so many problems for especially the community space. Like one of the problem as a queer collective mentally that we didn't feel comfortable or disappoint us when we travel to other city or festival spaces that somehow we felt kind of an object to fill out the space. Okay, we have also in our lineup refugee people in Czech, and when we check the whole lineup or whole space there, we don't see any other BIPOC or queer artists, and we are only there. And I don't know how much it was diversity then. Another thing, we also travel to many open air or the big festivals, and then many trans, queer, BIPOC, and immigrant refugee performers, always in the side stages or side times. And when I watch the main program lineup, people, and I thought, what is the problem? Like, why we don't get that main spots? Like, are we less important than them? Or we don't do enough professional our job? No, it was just like we were not known that much as others. So this was kind of a disappointing point, and we start our Oriental Festival. And this year we had already third year, only the space for like whore artists, like sex workers, body position who are really proud from their job, what they do. And Oriental, it's like Oriental for us. I'm a belly dancer, and Oriental is Sharqi, like belly dance. It's kind of a dance style. So it presents the half word. It presents more Swana country performers, and it comes together. So Oriental, and this was also, since now it's a problem that people doesn't get it. Like, for example, we applied for one funding with this Oriental name, and then we got an answer that unfortunately we didn't get it, and even they answered the name with ... Oriental Festival, like they didn't use even a horror word. So, like, we are still on the way. Like, there are so many things I feel we have to do. And, or I don't know, from one space when we wanted to do, like to rent the space for festival, one manager, she said that, why Oriental? I don't think it's a right word. I don't want my daughter would be named as a whore. So they didn't give us a space. Like, yeah, it's just fun. Why someone should name your daughter as a whore? Like, yeah, there's so many discussions, but still it's happening. Of course, there are so many also supporters, lovers, and community that supporting these spaces, alternative spaces. Of course, like for many sponsor or space, like club, venues, maybe most wanted music sounds more safe than Oriental name, but we are challenging, so kind of a challenge machine. And yeah, nowadays we are discussing how we can do next year, how, because the clubs gets rent expensive venues. Of course, artists want more money every year, And only question how to keep the community that we have like together and come to the space what we do, because like fundings were in a way even before not that much option possible thing for us. We didn't get that much, and also we couldn't apply to so many places, so we were kind of most our events like self-organized.
That's maybe a point to think about, like inside of communities and going inside communities, maybe do things together that you add, like put things together rather than do like everyone do their own thing. Because sometimes I think that's happens a lot in Berlin, that everybody wants to have their own thing. So with the funding, it's going to be more difficult to who gets it and how much, and so maybe we have to start thinking about crossing the aisle and be like, hey, do you want to do something together? And so we have like a mixed bag in the story, but we're supporting many communities. Maybe, I don't know. Could be an idea, because I definitely see that all those things that you've mentioned definitely in the work that I do, and I also work with a lot of artists, especially in the touring aspect, that are coming from countries where the chance to come to tour in Europe, for example, they have to have like 3 months straight of shows, like almost every night, to even make enough when they go home that they're not losing money, and that is crazy. That is crazy. So like, and there's so many talented people everywhere. We know that like music is just like, we're living in this business, which is amazing, but and it just feels like the room is getting smaller and smaller for us to be able to enjoy everything. And yeah, I'm looking forward to alternatives. So yeah, I read an article too about that somebody sent to me beforehand. It was posted in many different ways. It was just about a solo artist from Hamburg, a pop musician, who basically said, she wrote an article to say basically farewell to the music business. And then it started like the conversation. Then somebody from Livecom, I got to write his name down here, Felix Gradler from Livecom, then jumped on and was talking about defending the venues, and then also throwing and saying, oh, it's these people that are taking all the money, and so it's starting to become like everyone wants to kind of pass the bag and who's actually responsible for all this. And I guess we could all probably write down a few names or not names, but things that are causing the problems right now. But I think we have to start thinking about more solutions than to think about just how horrible it is. And that's kind of where I started with thinking like, okay, I don't want to be like have this downer space where we're only talking about that, but actually think about how we do it. Because I mean, the music business has always been precarious, has never been like, I mean, as long as I've been inside of it, over 20 years, and definitely we know the history of music. It's definitely, there's a lot of people that have been made money, and most of them who do not. So we see that happening here, but in a very different and very slanted scale, which I think is, for me, the most disturbing about it. I had a question. Sorry, my notes here. Yeah, so I just wanted to be an alarmist in that whole situation to think about it. But maybe we could open it up right now, because we have some time to ask any questions. Anybody has questions for us right now about either what you've experienced or what you're going through, or what something has been directly spoken about on the stage? Maybe there's a microphone too if anybody has questions.
I'm just sneaking up on you.
Yeah.
Say,
yeah.
You have a few more minutes left.
Yeah.
And also, if there are questions that you might not want to address in front of everybody, we have the Swap Card app, where you can also pose all the questions, commentaries, also maybe on things that were mentioned earlier that we might not have the time to address just now. Then you can just put them in there now, and I'll have them on my iPad, and I can also address them then.
Nobody has questions? I cannot believe this. You're so dumbfounded by the the paralyzed. Yeah.
I've been reading a lot in the last couple of years about how it's really expensive Thank you. I've heard a lot of stories about live bands canceling their tours, and I'm seeing that, bands that several years ago, when they released an album, they would tour across Europe. Now they're barely doing anything. And I'm kind of feeling like there's already a reaction to that, where I'm seeing a lot more new artists being focused on being solo artists, and I feel like it's already kind of changing the culture, where people, when they go into music, they prefer to create art that is a bit more sustainable for them to keep up. And I'm just wondering if you're feeling something similar. You think that the future might be a situation where we see less new live bands that are actually a full band? Or are there any kind of thoughts about what kind of infrastructure we can create in the future to make band tours a bit more sustainable again?
That's a very good question. I mean, I definitely see that happening. I mean, I know with bands that I work with, that we talk about. I mean, the touring schedules are months ahead, so you're looking at, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we didn't get enough gigs, so we had to cancel the tour. That happens very, very often, and more, as you said. And I do see definitely more people coming out, and even if they have a band where they're from, they often go on tour alone, because they can travel then with their laptop and their one instrument or whatever. So it's simply more efficient. I don't have an answer for that. That's what I would love to figure out, how to help them. I know that festivals maybe are one way that they're actually, the income is there usually, and something they can, but that means they have to have somebody help them get a lot of those gigs. So I don't know how many you need. I mean, I'm not, maybe you have more experience with that, like calculating how much does an artist need in a cycle, like of a touring cycle, to be able to make it.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I don't have a solution. I'll just lead with that. But right now, with the agency that we run, when someone's considering building a live show, if they ask me for advice, one of the things we recommend is thinking about the technical footprint, as in, can it travel in a Pelican case? Can you even take it on hand luggage, which is quite a petite setup, maybe like Octatracks or whatever. And we are finding it harder and harder to build really big live AV shows. Like, you have to have a huge audience there. I think the last really big live AV show with like 4 people on tour, we did that in 2018, kind of pre-COVID, and you need to think about which venues have the backline, how many tickets you're worth. Post-Brexit, for the UK-based artists, you need to have car nets for your tech, which is basically like a visa for things traveling. Or you could go down the kind of path of least resistance, which is just don't build the show unless you're supremely confident that you can do that. I don't have the data in front of me, but I did see something online about how there's just no bands in the top 40, etc. And I think there's a lot of things at play here. One of them being just music genre trends. But I definitely think, with the margins and festivals getting thinner, festivals will be happy to kind of skew towards things that don't really need to have that much technical setup. And in terms of like an artist, whether it's DIY or with an agent, routing a tour, yeah, the amount of things you need to have in play in terms of, can the equipment be hired locally? What are your visa situations like? And that's just assuming that your let's say your hypothetical band is based in Central Europe. That's before we even get on to the conversation about who gets to tour, who has the money in the bank to tour, who can take the risk in the tour, who can get the visa, etc. But it's a much bigger conversation that we can get into right now. But that's some initial thoughts on the obstacles for these kind of things going on tour beyond a DJ or a kind of one-person live show.
Can I? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just like something quick to add, that I just feel like it's kind of hard sometimes to know what's the chicken and the egg in this situation, where it's hard for me to know if the reason that you see live bands trending less than they were like 10 years ago is the result of touring costs being so expensive, and or is that like the other way around? I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure because I don't really have enough kind of like hard data. I would hypothesize that, are there fewer bands making music because they can't take it on tour? Are we all becoming more insular anyway? Like you say, chicken and egg. There's probably people that are much more knowledgeable than me that have an idea about DIY scenes in their own city. But when I go back home to Glasgow, like there's still a DIY scene there, but there's not as many bands as there used to be when I grew up. I don't know if that's just a kind of the normal kind of like ebb and flow of musical trends. When I was younger in the city, there was lots of like garage bands, and now not so much. And yeah, how much of that is these kind of economical costs, and how much of it's just kind of the natural kind of change in musical trends?
I was actually just suggesting that because there is so much more opportunity to like create music on your own laptop, like high quality music on your laptop, that there is like more solo artists coming up, because like back in the day, like you needed to have like so much more equipment to make one song, but like now with like the digital music production versioning, it's like so many more like solo artists. So I guess this is also part of it.
Hi. I wanted to add to that globalization. Basically, we're so used to artists touring now, and I wanted to actually ask this question as well. Do you think there could be a cultural shift in live music if we focus on keeping it local, supporting the local scene, more and more investing in DIY spaces, in upcoming artists, but not just funding-wise? Like, if all the gatekeepers came together and really focused on supporting local scenes, would that create, like, is it even a thought that's being spoken about within the scene?
I think this was a little bit what I wanted to get at when I was thinking, like, I think we need a bit more of it, like of a scene thinking. To my knowledge, I don't think there is this conversation on a bigger level, but I think we should be having it, like also how to distribute risk, or how could we build infrastructures for those kind of coming together. Like at the panel that we had the other day, we were like thinking about like who could, for example, create, like where could such an infrastructure be located. We were discussing like, maybe GEMA or something, like somebody who already collects and redistributes. How could they do it better? How could they maybe take on, probably they are not the right ones, but we were just like thinking about it. Who could actually bring people together and create this, or like ticketing platforms make, I think, still tons of money. I think they shouldn't. Like, I think they should, like, that money should go elsewhere, like, or how could we redistribute risk? Like, if you rent, somebody was also saying that before, like in the past, sometimes you would maybe have a door deal, and then the venue and the promoter and the artist were kind of sharing a risk. But now you have to rent out the club. So the sound tech is they charge horrendous amounts of like hourly rates. Why, actually? Like, I mean, yes, they also want to survive, but then if everybody else then has to give up on their money, like, how are those things distributed, and how is there also a solidarity between everybody working in the business?
I agree. I definitely saw that for myself when I started going, like, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I paid 450 euros for rent. Now I'm paying 758 or 800, and then I haven't sold a ticket, and I still have to pay them, the band, a wage. Then I have to buy the food for the backstage and for their dinner, and then I have to pay the technician, and maybe sometimes the security guard. So it starts blowing up, and you have not sold one ticket. And this is what the scary thing is. For the other side, like, then we have to, where do we put? I can't hold that myself as a promoter, and that's the problem. You need people like me to help to do the stages, to take the risk. I mean, I'm willing to take a risk, and I've always done that, but I can't take all the risk. I can't anymore. And that's kind of where I think is like we have to think about, yeah.
Can I add? Oh,
No, but please, and I'll speak
no,
on.
no, just a very short, and also then the risk is on you. So you would be doing all the promo. But if the club also shared a risk in this, they would also be promoting. And then at the end of the day, there would be more people coming, because if everybody shared in the promo, you know, then...
It used to be like that, but it's dwindled, for sure. Can we have one more thing?
Yeah, I know.
I just feel like, yeah.
To add?
No, I just want to say, when we speak about like local scenes and local ecosystems and all this kind of stuff, I think there are a lot of players, individuals who are very willing to be proactive. And speaking about these smaller venues, there's a lot of people trying to find alternatives to exist within this ecosystem. But then it's also, it's kind of like, you know, looking at the climate crisis. Like, we can do what we want to do, but there's also factors around us that have a bigger impact. So it's like, if you want to talk about bringing down, like, it's too expensive to go clubbing. Okay, let's reduce the fees, the entrance fees, or like DJs are charging too much, or our live acts are too expensive. Let's reduce their fees. But ultimately, when you have a situation where rents are being hiked, where like access to funding is more restricted, because especially in the current climate now, you know, if I'm going to be really explicit, you have a situation where government funding is no longer as easily accessible to everyone within the sort of the club political spectrum. You know, what you're talking about the Oriental festivals, there's obviously certain, you know, collectives right now who might be less likely or less able to access the fund they could have before because of things like IHRA being, you know, coming in. And I'm not trying to assume anyone's political spectrum right now, but it is a question about how you can access help and what you have to do in order to do that, and if that compromises your moral values or so. And like, I know CTM, for example, you know, they are having issues with, actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to spill that tea. Anyway, yeah, but long story short is that there's like a lot of reasons why, as much as the will is there and the actual desire and ability to take the action is there, it's like, what do we, how do we engage and acknowledge the sort of context within which we are working and what can be done about that. So when Watergate closes because the landlord hiked up the rent by like God knows how many like percentages, it's like, we want to talk about saving venues, but how can you save venues when it's becoming increasingly expensive? So I don't know if that's a form of like crowdfunding or what, you know, kind of looking at alternatives. And I think it's very easy to sort of be a bit of a doomsdayer, but I guess it's like, we haven't got the answers, but like, what are the alternatives? Because what has been really beneficial in places like Berlin is that they had, am I talking too much?
Yes.
Sorry, okay, I'll stop. Sorry, we haven't had much time to speak. Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I just wanted
just,
to give you a little breather into the ear, so you know, like, I'm
sorry, I was just trying to rush it because I'm seeing this tick in and I don't want to, but it's fine. No, it's fine. There's no point. No.
Because it's actually important. And what we're coming to is basically that we do need a live Music Credit Crunch 2.0 conversation. We really do, because we just grappled on so many spots. And as also a systemic coach, I can see where we need way more of these spaces in these rooms. And I just want to say thank you, Melissa, for hosting this panel. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Prince. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Juba, for adding your expertise. And please give it up for them.
I just want to add one thing, is that with Music Pool, I will definitely be going into this topic more for sure, and we're going to think about in the new year to do some kind of bigger group formats, so like not only one-on-one consultation, but maybe like discussions, group discussion. So this would be something that I would probably start with anyway, so that we can start thinking together also about, saving our music scene here in different, whatever ways that is. So thank you.
And once again, please feel free to use the app if there are specific points that you would like to add towards this conversation that we haven't been able to address. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here this morning. And then we're gonna, whoever wants to stick around for the next conversation, we're going to talk about, in the age of AI, how to not get sued with your music. So this is gonna be a swift exchange. Thank you so much for being here today, and stick around if the next conversation interests you.